It is time for a quick garden tour update. Last year, I didn't get to do much. I had knee surgery, quad surgery, and didn't do basically anything in the garden. So I'm going to take a quick walk through and show you all of the neglect so we see where we're starting this year, and then I can show you how much work it takes to get a perennial system back into production. So I'm going to start over here. I've just moved some of my worm bins out for making compost. I've got some pawpaw trees in here. This one's starting to branch out nicely. They were shaded by this last year, so I didn't add any extra shade. That worked really well for the first 2 years. Now they're up above it, and they should be able to start handling light. So this system worked well. I have no idea what this is. It's just been here, and I've never taken the time to identify it. I've got some raspberries that have moved into the area, and that's okay. Harvested, I got lots of ferns for the fiddleheads here, and that is a tasty treat that I've missed out on the harvest of this year. It's just been a busy season already. I've got black walnut stain that is just brewing, just seeing what I can get from that. I've already got 5 gallons of it hanging around. Let's take a peek over here. I've got hazelnuts in here. The rest of this is all just weeds. I haven't done anything in here. Another hazelnut here. This one's growing more as a single stem. This one's growing as a multi-stem. Both are okay to me. Now, we come to, I had put up a greenhouse for temporary use, and it is in the process of coming down. And it's gonna take, I've got a bunch of mushrooms growing. These are all wine cap Kingstrafaria mushrooms. I propagate them by doing this. Take this portion, oops, and I might come back and remember to pick those up. Oh, there's more growing here. I harvested about half a bushel from there just the other day. I'm gonna hold on to these, and I'm gonna plant them in a different part of the garden because obviously there's lots in this area already. I've got blackberries and gooseberries that have exploded over the last year, and currants, and a bunch more of the same. The strawberries underneath. I've got some nursery stock getting ready to grow in here, protected from squirrels because they're primarily nuts. Lots of rhubarb. There's rhubarb everywhere here. That one I believe is gooseberry. There's a currant or a hascap on the other side of the fence. The kiwi vines I cut back heavily for propagation. So it was growing all the way out to about here last year. By the end of last year. This is blackberry. I cut back a bunch of that blackberry for propagation. It produced really nicely last year. I'm hoping for a bunch more this year. This is black currant. That has all these nice little yellow blooms in here. It's gonna produce heavily again. I really enjoyed the fruit from that, so I'm gonna be propagating that one extensively. My kiwi vine took over the clothesline, so I need to pull that back. And that's okay, that's an easy job, kind of an enjoyable one. As I look at it, ooh, yep, I see this is all covered in little blooms. Oh, this one, bunch of blooms. This branch, yep, bunch on there. Bunch on here, bunch on here, here. It's going to be a good year, hopefully. For kiwis, I can see that all of that is just chocker blocked full with it too. I have a male kiwi over here, females all over there. And it's time to start adding support for this structure. So I want this to be a nice tunnel going through. So it needs a little bit of work. That's okay. I'd started pulling the pond out last year because I was expecting to move. So it is in a state of total disrepair, partial dismemberment. The frogs are loving it though. There's frog. There are a few more of them. So I am going to set up the waterfall again, get this all enjoyable for myself, while still having the shallow end over here that the frogs really enjoy. This compost pile is going to move to that end. I'm going to plant some fruit trees here and some fruit trees on either side of this pond for landscaping purposes. This is perennial flowers with a bunch of grasses in it. I need to pull some of the grasses out. And here, there was an apple tree. There's no longer an apple tree because I dug it up partway through the season to move it to build a shed here for someone to live in as emergency shelter. But we found other housing for them after I had dug it up. So basically everything was pulled out of this area. We're gonna get into the main garden area out here though. I'm gonna start with the annual portion. This is the annual portion I did not touch at all. It had no mulch, it had nothing. It was not used at all last year, and it's filled with weeds. Lots of weeds. It'll take a bit of work to get it back to order. That's okay, that was expected. This one had a little bit of stuff planted, just kind of shoved in the ground. So it has less weeds, but still a bunch. And that's a lot of nursery stock. So I've got a few hundred pawpaw trees, and I've got grafted apples, a Antonovka apple from seed. They grow well from seed. Some pears for rootstock, and it's a variety that grows true to seed, so it should be a tasty pear for eating pears. I've got some butternuts in there. It is overgrown with black raspberry and hardy kiwi. So I am going to have to pull back some of that. The perennials have started trying to take over the annual area because there was an opportunity for it, so it took the opportunity. In here, I've been harvesting a bunch of asparagus already. Strawberry will be later on. Lots more kiwi blossoms all throughout here, which is a nice treat to see. Getting through. All that I did last year was I put up this sprinkler and that sprinkler, just tied a stake sprinkler to the top of a post so that I could water sometimes. So this one was empty, and it's just been taken over primarily by weeds, but also this kiwi has rooted. So I have another, I think 6 or so plants. I'll have to see how well they've rooted. This one was an interesting one because it was an annual bed, but then I planted a whole bunch of nursery stock trees in here, but didn't mulch it or anything. So it has weeds coming in, but there's still a lot going on here. I've got this haskap here, and I have a whole bunch of fruit trees that got eaten by rabbits. So it was grafted down here, it was eaten to here, so this one's gonna grow again. It's gonna be the variety that I want, whereas this one was eaten too far down, and it's just gonna grow up from the rootstock. So I'll let it grow, and I'll graft onto it again next year. Same thing with some of these other ones. That one's dead, but most of these survived the full year with neglect and another year and being eaten. So that's good to see. Strawberries are starting to come in. The raspberries and black raspberries are coming into this space because they were growing on the border, and it was an easy space for them to grow into. I've got gooseberries coming up in here as well. Some more apples. These ones look like they got hit a little harder. I think there was a little bit less snow over here, so they got eaten a little further down. This is where the compost pile is going to go, and some squirrels gave me some presents, which is not the way that it usually goes with me and squirrels. Oh, I forgot I had a haskap bush there. It is well over 3 feet tall. It's happy over there. I'm going to have to examine that. My stone fruit tree had lots of blossoms this year, so I've got hopefully lots of fruit this year of many types. I did harvest fruit off of it last year. Peaches, apricots, nectarines. I don't think I harvested any plums or cherries off of this one, but I should this year. Now we start getting into the perennial section, which looks like absolute chaos, and it is, but it's also okay and good. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to stick, these are the stems off of my my mushrooms. I'm going to put them right in the path. This is how I'm going to plant them. I'm just going to pull back some material, Stick that down there. There's enough mycelium on there. Little worm. Cover it up so it doesn't dry. Let it do its thing. I'll probably be harvesting mushrooms from there. Probably next year because I didn't put many in there, but maybe this year. So now that I have a free hand, let's get back into here. So here, I have elderberries that are growing, getting ready to produce fruit. I cut these back heavily this year for propagation. I've got raspberries that I planted from almost dead plants early in the spring last year, and they grew up nicely. They're all in here. I'm gonna have to start training them to a certain area, but they grew really well. Lots of rhubarb growing, lots of perennial onions growing. A currant that I got that was a pretty weak little currant. It's happy back there in the shade. They like the shade. We've got, let's see what we have here. So this is total chaos. But we have raspberries. I think we have some black raspberries. We have thornless blackberries. And I have probably a few hundred plants that I can harvest and I can plant elsewhere. So the burden here, any of the weeding here, is actually just harvesting plants to put elsewhere. My Egyptian onions are gonna wanna get some sunlight soon. So as I thin the rest of it, that'll get better. That's garlic that was left over from a few years ago, just growing wild. So this whole area is chaos, but I'm just gonna be pulling plants out that I can sell or transplant. And then it will be ready to go. I have a tray of asparagus that didn't even get planted last year. It's still in the tray here. So a bunch of those will grow, some of them won't. That's okay. Apple tree, getting nice heavy blooms after this year. Hopefully this branch will hang out further down here and it'll encourage it to grow more fruit in the future. But it's got lots of blooms on all the branches. I think, what was this one? This one was Freedom Apple. I just grafted a bunch more of these. They're supposed to be a really good producer with really good disease resistance. Haskap, already putting on fruit. Super early producer, wonderful. This portion had a lot of annuals in it 2 years ago. So last year it was pretty bare. I have some perennial things like I've got sage, there's some lavender and a couple other things in here, some strawberries. But this was basically an annual bed. So like these annual beds, it'll be mostly weeding compared to the perennial beds, which is mostly harvesting plants to transplant. Haskap bush. This was a pear that I knew right from the beginning wasn't gonna make it. I planted it anyways, just in case. Asparagus that I grew from seed. It's getting late to harvest, but I'm going to enjoy this one. This is from seed 3 years ago, I believe. And it's harvestable. Strawberries ended up spreading. Fortunately, these spread a bunch last year, which means that I have less weeding to do this year. So thanks to strawberries, thanks to the perennials for saving my butt. Raspberries, more Haskaps. I actually had to start pulling back some of the rhubarb to make room for this Haskap. This is a tree that I transplanted from the corner over there, and I'm gonna let it keep one bloom, but if it tries to put any more on, I've been pulling them off. I wouldn't mind trying one apple from this tree, but I want it to recover its roots because I transplanted it. This was another bed that was primarily stock for the nursery, so a lot of grafted apple trees. And again, I had really good success with my grafts. They just got chewed by the rabbits, so I had to let them grow for another year. And then I have some strawberries and stuff in here, but most of this is all weeds that are just gonna have to get dug up because it wasn't mulched, it wasn't covered with anything, any ground cover. Cherry tree. This is a sour cherry, getting ready for a bumper crop for its first year producing. So now we can see it all starting to come together. I zoomed out all the way. Yeah. So I'll continue with annual crops mostly in here. Some berry garden over there. Berries, and I'm going to transition out from some of the rhubarb into some more berry bushes along the outside now that the weed pressure is down. And I've got big apple tree over there, big apple tree over here, smaller cherry tree here. I'm probably going to put a plum tree there. Peach, what was it? Peach, nectarine, all of the stone fruit tree is going to be there. It's starting to fill in nicely. Starting to get more of an ecosystem going on. I harvested a lot of food from this last year, and I didn't put any work in. If I neglect it this year, it'll produce even more next year. And apart from this section and the trail, the path, it'll probably take about the same amount of work to bring back into shape next year as it would this year. Reliable production. And super easy. I'm probably going to spend half a day in here. Michelle might join me for part of the day, and we'll get it weeded, get some plants in the ground. I'll probably get another load of mulch for the pathway, and I'll also mulch around the fruit trees that are staying in. I have to figure out where to put another 50 fruit trees for them to grow till next year. We'll end with my weed supporting, where is it? There's a bee. Hope you enjoyed. Also, I get a lot of people that when they do come here, I don't let many people come here because I do have tenants, that are surprised that when I do my tours, most of it's just in this little space here. There's a lot that grows on here. I didn't mention most of it in this video, but a lot can be grown in a small area. We'll see the updates throughout the year. There's going to be some coming on here, and I've got a few big projects coming along as well. So we'll see how all that goes. I'm also doing a landscape course, so this will be hopefully being applied here. Some of the things are going to stay. My fruit trees are going to stay where they are now, but I can work with them to create some kind of beautiful landscape work. I like the flowers from that are starting to come in here, but I do want to create a more visually attractive space, a little less crazy. Enjoy your summers.